He made it to the title match and a PBA title was on the line, but before the match began, he was injured. He wasn't even able to hook the ball because the pain was just too much. He had a decision to make, either pull out or come up with another plan. What he did next will shock you all. On the 31st of August 2025, Rash was having a remarkable run at the Lucky Larsen Masters in Sweden, which is the only PBA event outside of the US. Rash managed to make it all the way to the title match, but during his practice shots, he was visibly injured and in a lot of pain. He could hardly throw the ball down the lane. This was simply awful timing because Rash had been waiting for this moment for nearly 4 years, as his last PBA title came in 2021. He was in a bad situation. This pattern was very tough, and with him being injured, it was going to be a near impossible feat to overcome his opponent, who had been red hot all day. So what exactly did Rash do? Well, before we get into that, I need to give you just a little bit of background so you all understand the context of the situation. This year's Lucky Larsen was very tough and low scoring. Last year's the scores were high because everybody was able to play up the gutter and score well. This year things were totally different. The pattern actually played much more like the patterns used on the PBA Tour. Obviously, this is an advantage to the Americans and to the Tour players, but it wasn't all Americans in the top 4. Juho Rissanen from Finland was there representing the Europeans. What we saw in this year's event were lanes that transitioned very quickly, where the transition was pretty brutal at times. We saw a lot of lofting and 3-step approaches during the blocks, and I think many were caught out by just how tough the conditions were. It was a real grind. I watched the match play rounds and of course the step ladder finals, and everybody basically attacked the lanes in the same way, and that was a lot of angle. This meant you couldn't miss right, but some players were able to create hold with the right speed. Rash had a really nice look all day long and beat Raymond Teese from England in the round of 8 to make the televised semi-final. In his opening semi-final match, he played Nate Purchase, who was making his televised debut for a singles title, although he has had some TV time thanks to the PBA junior shows. But it was a big moment for him, and it was a low-scoring grind for both players. Rash tried to rally late, striking in the 9th and the 1st in the 10th, but really needed one more strike to put the pressure on Purchase. However, Rash left a 7-pin off a light shot and finished with a 174. This meant Nate Purchase just needed a mark, but on this pattern, that is no gimme whatsoever. But he went and left possibly the hardest spare he could have left, leaving the 3-6-9-10, and he would miss it to hand Rash the win with a final score of 174 to 166. Rash got away with it there, but as I said, on these extremely tough conditions, anything is possible, and a 174 is easily a winning score on these, as we just saw. So we quickly jump over to the other semi-final match where Andrew Anderson, who's had a fantastic season, played the lone European. And just like Purchase, Juho was making his TV debut. He looked very calm out there and just went about his business without paying attention to his opponent, just like he'd done all day so far. It was still tight after 8 frames, but the turning point was when Anderson missed the headpin in the 9th and left the 1-2-4-8. He did spare, but it gave his opponent the chance to lock up the match, which he did with a strike in the 9th and the 1st in the 10th. A very composed performance, but Juho would have his work cut out against the very experienced Hall of Famer in Rash. But now is when we switch back to Rash and his injury. Now this is an ongoing injury that he's been dealing with. He said he took some time off to let it heal, but obviously it really flared up, and you can see during practice he's holding his arm and is in a lot of pain. He started bowling as normal, but after a few shots it became clear he was just not going to be able to bowl like that. So he had only one option, apart from putting out, that is, and that was to throw basically straight at the pocket. It was a very old school tactic. He just took everything out of his release and went as straight as he could. It was like he was shooting spares, but you know what? It worked out even better than he could have dreamt of. Yes, he was in pain, but he was knocking the pins over. It helped that Yuho opened in the third, but Rash made it 3 in a row. Now yes, he was getting good breaks, including this shot that went through the nose, but given the pain he was in, this was all he could do. Throw it straight, hope to strike, or if not, leave something easy he could spare. He even made it 4 in a row after a trip 4 pin, and he maintained a sizable lead, but was clearly struggling with the pain, and in the 7th left the 1-2-4, which he did miss. It gave his opponent a glimmer of hope, now down by 28, but it still meant that Rash just needed to stay clean in the 9th and 10th frames. In the 9th he missed a headpin again, but cleaned up the 1-2, and then in the 10th struck for the mark he needed to win the title. Now, whether you love or hate Sean Rash, this was such an unbelievably gutsy performance, and it shows just what a talent he is. He had to reach right into the back of his bag of tricks to pull out this one, but it paid off in a big way. And you know what? I think this shot was actually a genius play regardless of his injury. Because they were playing so tough, they had transitioned a lot by then, and just by going straight, he took the pattern out of the equation. It was such an old school move that I think many bowlers could learn to bring into their arsenal. Sean was forced to use it here, but it worked so well when he got it right. It seemed that it was a much better look than he had in the semi-final match. He could have crumbled mentally after that injury flared up so badly in practice just before the start of the final. His opponent could have jumped on that opportunity, but Rash found a solution and didn't give his opponent the chance to dominate the match in any way. This is one of the most impressive wins of the season for me, and to be honest, I think it will go down as one of his best wins in his career given the circumstances. Now, all Rash needs to do is go and enjoy his victory and then take the time to fully recover. Rash is currently a free agent when it comes to being signed to a ball company. There's been rumours about him joining Motive, and he was throwing Motive equipment throughout the tournament. So perhaps this win may have actually also fully secured him a deal with Motive. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens next season if Rash can heal up and get himself 100%. Maybe this win could spark a revival in his career. We've seen it many times before. Great players in their 40s suddenly come back and win a handful of titles. Sean's confidence is going to be high after that win, so I'm going to be very interested to see how he performs in 2026. And that will bring us to an end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed watching the live stream of this, and many thanks to the team of the Lucky Larsen tournament for putting on a great tournament as always, but also making that semi-final and final available for us to watch via the live stream. Thank you all so much. If you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button below. Well, that will do it from me for today, and as always, thank you bowling fans, and see you all next time.